I went up in my office because this is what I did the last 11 years as a pastor in the other church. 8 o'clock, my computer, and then I was sitting there hearing the voice of my wife shouting up, darling, David, please shut your computer, come down and go out. Church planting is not something you're doing in the office. That's something you're doing outside.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the M4 podcast. My name is Kröker. Today our special guest is David Kröker.
That's
from
right.
Germany. Close enough. Okay.
That's enough.
So David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So why don't you tell us a little bit, who are you? Germany, where are you living? Tell us a little about your family. We'd also like to hear a little bit about your own faith journey.
Yes, I like to share it. I'm from the west part of Germany, next to Cologne. My wife and me, we have 4 kids, and we are so glad to plant a church there in the area next to Cologne. So I'm 40 right now, and when I look back, I was 4 years when I came to faith. It's
4 years old?
4 years old.
Oh, wow.
As a young kid. There was a church service, and the preacher invited to make a decision. And then I asked my 2 older brothers, is it okay to go up front? And then they said, go. And really, I went. And I deeply believe that since then I'm a child of God. And, there was a preacher who once said that many believers, they have their calling before the 10th grade, when they are 10 years old. So I'm in the age of 6, 7, 8, was thinking a lot about how can I bring as much as I can people to Christ.
Wow.
And my father, as a preacher, as evangelist, he was preaching a lot, and I was the one of the 5 siblings who wanted to go with him and to see him preaching. And when he talked about Jesus, his eyes was shining, and I wanted it too. And I knew it from kid on that I will preach the gospel and see many, many people coming to faith. So this is something I have in my heart, in my mind. I think almost every day about how can we be effective in the evangelism, bringing people to Christ. And so this is something what my wife also shares, and I see her investing in the neighborhood with friends, hanging out, and it is something we do together. But in the beginning, when we start dating and have had our marriage, I thought, oh God, what did you do? Because I believe that he brought us together, but we were so different. And I was in the pastor's home, but her father was a mechanist working with cars and had the 9-to-5 job, and everything was clean and clear, structured in her family. In my family, it was chaotic. So in the beginning, it was difficult, but now I would say God had a really great plan bringing us together for this calling, and so we are so thankful to go this way together.
Wow. So I understand you've planted a church, but you come to faith when you're 4. How did you go from 4 years old and being excited about sharing the gospel to planting a church when you were, say, around 35, I think, if it was 5 years ago? So what happened along in that journey to get you and then into starting a church?
Yes. I knew that my father was studying theology in the seminary there in the middle of Germany, Gießen. And then for me, it was clear I will go there to study theology because I saw him needing it. And then I remember when in high school, my schoolmates, they didn't know what to do with their lives. For me, it was clear. So but the picture of evangelism was for me all the time to see my father at the pulpit up front preaching. And I thought this is the way to reach many people. And so I thought, okay, now I need somewhere a job, people who give their money to give me this chance to preach, and that's why I thought all the time that this would be my way. And during my studying the seminary, I was thinking, where can I get a job for doing this kind of evangelism? But in the high school, I had mathematics and physics. I love numbers. I want to see something growing, but not just as I feel that this is growing. I want to see it growing, and see also numbers and counting and multiplying, not only addition. To see a growth, and so I always thought, how can we serve God? How can we preach and share the gospel and seeing multiplication movement? This was something in my mind, but the theology of being a apostolic leader I didn't know so well. I rose up in the Baptist church, and there we didn't talk about a lot about apostolic leaders. And then in the seminary, the teacher, he said, David, you have the gift of evangelist and the apostolic gift. So then he said, your way will God will lead you one day to church planting. And I didn't know about church planting. I couldn't imagine being a church planter one day. And then 11 years I was a youth pastor and a pastor in the church, in the Brethren Church with 350 members. And I experienced how difficult it is to work with people, to go the long way, But as I remember, all the time I was thinking, if I could start by scratch, what would I do and what not? And the second question is the more important question, what not? Because we had there in this church so many things going, and we needed so much co-workers, and everyone was involved in this church, but the fruit, the people coming to faith were so few. And that's why then I thought, oh man, so much money and so much people for so few less conversions.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought of strategic ways to reach many people. Yeah.
And so from that led you to want to start to plant a church with this desire to see more people come to Christ.
Actually, it was a calling.
Yeah.
I was there for 10 years, I think, and then in the 10th year there was from our denomination someone who asked David, can you imagine to move in another city to plant a church, because there was a church closed, and then there were 2 members left, and then they asked me to start to renew or to build to plant a church. And then in that moment I remember my teacher telling me that one day I will be a church planter, and 10 years later it was something what becomes realistic. And then my wife and me were praying and fasting and thinking about that. But in the meantime, during this church, when I was a pastor there, my father was a church planter in Israel, and he was for 20 years there planting churches. And I was every October from 2001 till 2018, every October with him there, seeing him planting churches.
Wow.
But not on one place, in many places. And there I saw him a little bit doing things what I was very excited or inspired, convinced of, that it can be
Multiplication.
Sorry.
Wow. And when you started this church, it was just you and your family, as I understand. Tell us about that. What is it like planting as a family versus just as not just you're the planter and your family's on the side, but you integrated your family, as I understand, from the very beginning.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that we would start as family. I thought there was a church and they closed and there were 2 members, and when we would move there, then the others who went away would come back when they would hear that there is a new pastor in the city, and would give me a chance. So we had a bunch of people of 10, 15, 20. I thought we would have a small group,
Okay.
even a small group. And then when we bought our house, really, and moved there, we had this evening in summer 2018. The pastors around our city, they came together to bless us, to pray for us. And then on this night, those 2 older men said, "Oh, sorry, we won't work. We are not co-worker. We will wait till it runs, and then we will come." To
Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
you
then
lost all of your
right,
members.
right. And then in this second, we realized, my wife and me, oh, we are alone,
Okay.
just by ourselves. I can imagine. I think we wouldn't do it if we would knew it before. But in that moment, for us, it was okay. Now the chance to start a new church, because otherwise we would need to talk about the problems the church had before, and we had to deal with it. But now we had the freedom to start with all the conviction and all the thoughts we had in our minds.
And how is it planting as a family? What is the effects it has on your children, on your wife, your marriage, and your relationship that way?
As I described, we had this evening in our house, and then one of the pastors asked, "What is the one wish you want from God? What shall we pray for?" And then my wife and me, and I don't know why it was so clear for us both. We said, we wish the gift of hospitality. And this has a reason, because my wife, she suffered from migraine since she was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And this was so terrible. Almost every second day she had this pain. And with 3 boys, our daughter, she came later, it was terrible for us, not knowing will it be a good day or a bad day. So we always dreamed of having people in our house, but we couldn't live it out because it was for her not, she wasn't able for that. But in our dream, we thought of being a church primarily in our house. We thought of Ephesians 5, wife and husband are like church and Christ, and this union, this first cell, we thought, okay, this is the picture of the church of Christ, and then it all starts as at home. And that's why for us it was so deep in our heart. We wanted to open not only our hearts but also our home. And then they prayed for us, and half a year later, my wife had the opportunity to have a doctor in Berlin who could help her, and from that she is almost without migraine. And
Wow,
we have now guests in our house and people coming, and we share our life with people in our neighborhood. And this is what we dreamt of. Yeah.
So take me now. You just finished that meeting. You lost your whole church. Your family's now. How did you get started? What kind of strategy and what were you doing at the very beginning? What was it like, and some of the challenges and things you quickly discovered early on in a church plant?
Yeah, I remember the first day of our church planting. It was the 1st July of 2018. I went up in my office because this is what I did the last 11 years as a pastor in the other church. 8 o'clock, my computer, and then I was sitting there hearing the voice of my wife shouting up, "Darling, David, please shut your computer, come down and go out. Church planting is not something you're doing in the office. That's something you're doing outside."
Okay.
And then for me it was mind change to go out. Our kids were little, so I could spend time with them outside. But then I realized, oh man, how long does it take me to bring someone to Christ? It takes years. And do I really think of bringing many people to Christ now? And so we started to pray for those names in the neighborhood we come in contact with. And when we moved there, we tried to come in contact with them, and then we are hearing what is their names, and then we wrote their names in the list. And from that day till now, almost 6 years later, we are praying every day for 10 neighbors around us every day. And there's something we experienced. So now we are more than ever convinced of that prayer is everything. But this is something I knew theoretically before it. But now when you don't have the opportunity to do church, to plan church by yourself, you start to pray, and then you see, oh, this is so powerful to pray.
Wow.
Thanks for this lesson. And then we had our first cell group. It was God's grace that there was another family wanted to be in a team with us, to be in the first cell group with us. We thought of, okay, we start with the cell group, and then if God will be gracious, then the cell will grow and divide in 2 cells. I remember I was talking with our family at first when we were alone, and I said, oh, remember Noah in his ark, he built his ark, and then after 100 years, he was alone with the family in the ark. And I said to my wife and the kids, maybe in 100 years, we will be alone here. But then my 5-year-old son, Moses, he said, but Dad, when God put the animals twice in the ark, he can bring people to our church. And then I thought, okay, here's one in our circle, in our cell group who believes. And then this was also a mind change. It's Acts 2:47 that God added people in the church. So it's not something we do. Of course, we tried to invite them in our homes, but we thought, okay, it's his church and he will add. And then this family came, the believer family, we were together and we were meeting for 9 months every Sunday. And then they left us because of theology issues. And we were alone after 9 months, sitting there and thinking, oh man, it doesn't work. And then really on this Sunday, again alone, at 10 o'clock, we started at 10 o'clock, there was a Turkish guy about 60 years old knocking at our window, not at our door. And then he was looking at us, and I asked my wife, what shall I do? And then we open, ask, what can I help? And he said, many years ago, I came from Turkey to Germany to work here, and there was a guy on the street who handed me a Bible, and then I grabbed the Bible and started to read under the blanket in the night, and then I came to faith, and then I prayed for a church in this city, and now you are the answer to prayer.
Wow.
And we were alone as family, but in that second, in that moment, as if God was talking through him to us, this is my church. And then I was crying, he was crying, we were on our knees, and we're thankful for God is planting the church and not so much us. And then our next week later, our neighbor came, and I think it was a spiritual breakthrough. From that on, the neighbor came, and then the six week later, the neighbor girl came to faith, and then we had our first baptism, and through the girl, we had her network, and then we could start another cell group, and the third and the fourth. Then we had our food at the door, and could go through. And the structure we had then afterwards, because we wanted to have multiplication. So I thought, okay, I cannot be in every cell group. But how can we teach the people who raise in ourselves? And we are talking about 4 integration steps. The first integration step is integration in your heart. This is what I describe as praying every day, because when I'm praying, there's something in my heart and the heart of those I'm praying for. And then we experience that their conversation is so good because it's full of love. And then when my heart is open, then the door is open. I think it is something what grows organically. If you pray for someone, then you are open for this for those people, and you invite them. And then we saw them in our house sitting, and we were in conversation, and we're seeing them be so open, and they didn't want to go home. And we thought, oh, what shall we do now? Because we have our work to do. But they stay. My wife said, what shall I do then? And then I say, oh, maybe they like to sit at the table with Jesus, with God in us. And then we recognize that this is already church service, to have people with us at the table.
Okay.
For me, church was always a building somewhere. We come some days, but now I recognize so powerful to have a conversation at our house, hospitality. And then the third integration step is in the cell group, because people came in our house and they saw we have different values, and they asked, why are you so and so, why are you doing this and this? And then we said, okay, these are values from the Bible. You are welcome to share, to come with us once a week in the Sabbath rhythm. We try to help to bring people in this order. And then we experienced that many were open for that, to come and to sit with us. And then we thought, okay, maybe this is discipleship, what I always heard of from the Bible, but I never knew what is disciple making.
Okay.
And then I saw, okay, this is to share our lives, bringing people in our houses and go with them in their tempo. Okay, not too fast, not too slow, how they want it.
Their speed.
Yeah, and their speed. Thank you very much. And then when most of those who are coming to faith right now, we have 20 cells, and we baptized more than 30, I think 38 already, and most of them who come to faith, they are coming to faith in this third integration step in the houses. And because we are in the Catholic area, and many of those who are coming to faith, they stepped out of the Catholic Church, but they weren't open for another institution.
Right.
So when they were in our house, they didn't know that this is a church.
Okay.
We invited them to us as family, and then leading them to Christ, and not in the church.
Yeah, that's quite different from a Catholic background.
Yeah, right. And for them, it was then easy to be with us in not this church building. But then through this conversion, they have this new heart and are open for gathering with other believers, brothers and sisters, to meet them. And then we say, then we integrate them in the church. So then the cell groups come together, and every second week we have a church service on Sunday morning and have fellowship together. But then it's not so attractional to have a great stage and lights and so on, because the people who are coming, they want to meet the brothers and sisters, the family, the church family. That's why we don't invite in the church. We invite first in our heart, house, cell, and then church. And when you have those 4 steps, everyone can think of a process. And so I remember 2 months ago, I talk a lot about this, but then I saw me inviting a guy in our neighborhood, Julian, and I wrote him via WhatsApp, Julian, do you want to come to our church? And then I thought, hey, that's not the way we go. please come to my cell group. And then I thought, no, 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 no. There are two integration steps before that. Please come to my house. But then I thought, I don't want him in my house so much because he's talking a lot about things I'm not interested in. And then I thought, okay, maybe I put away my cell phone and integrate him in my heart again. And I prayed for 2-3 weeks, and then he knocked at our door, and he was there, and God led him again to our house, and we had dinner together. You know, so in our church we have this as highest value to integrate people in heart, house, cell group, and then church.
That's a great strategy. And it really makes sense. So then when you said church, so then just to clarify your model a little bit, you're in cell groups, those meet like every week, and then every other Sunday, then you gather like for something more where the cell groups are all together.
The cell groups, they are not just on Sunday. My cell group is on Monday night, and every second Sunday we have the church gathering. But for us, it is more important to have all the people in the cell groups than in the church service. So in the cell groups we have now about 120 people, but to the church service there are about 80. So we have many in this phase, in the third integration step, who are not knowing that they are in church, but they are. You know, we don't invite them to the church. So this is okay for us that they are for a year or 2 or 3 just in the cell group, because this is this disciple making thing where Jesus also took 3 years in this small group.
Great. You sound like a very exciting church in your neighborhood and in your city there in Germany.
We are so glad this is decentral, and you never know what happens in those cells.
Okay.
And as leaders, we then decided on 2 weeks ago to have baptism, not having someone who will be baptized, but we prayed and believed that in one of the cells will be someone ready. And yes, there were two guys were open and asked to be baptized. And then we had our baptism 2 weeks ago, and this was so great to see that on different places and different houses, people coming to faith, and you don't know them because now it's decentral, so you don't need to know everyone. This is important. So then we can grow, but everyone is in discipleship.
Great. Now, you are younger. You said how old are you? 40, you
40,
said?
40 years.
And one of the things that we've understood about you is that you're quite active on Instagram and in social media. Tell us about how are you using that? What does it mean being a pastor or a church planter and utilizing something like Instagram?
What I realize is that people are watching us, and mostly through social media. This is an easy step to get to know each other, or to get to know information about me. As we as church, we don't have social media and internet, because we say we want to reach our neighbor, and then I can go to his house and invite him or so. But social media I use to open my house. It is so easy to have a camera in our living room, and then to talk about some values and things we are so convinced of. And then I'm so excited to see people who are watching us. I don't know them, and then they call me some years later. David, we are living in the south of Germany. We started with cell groups. We have now 2 of them. People come to faith, and it is multiplication, but not actively forced. It happens. It grows in our country here and there. And I think there are more people that are watching us doing those 4 integration steps. And many say, oh, we are now in integration step 1. And I said, oh, where do you know these steps? Oh, via Instagram. Okay. So you started to pray for your neighbors. Praise God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you use it quite often, but you said as a church you don't really use it. It's more just you as a person to share with things that way.
Because for me it's important that it's not an institution, it's a person, it's me, it's my wife and me, it's our family. And I see that in Germany we have now problem to make it clear what denomination I am in, and the youth, they are not interested in this. They are interested to see people are faithful and families, how they live together. So that's why we don't try to bring up a church name. We want to bring up a lifestyle, so that many people can identify with it, not needing to move, not to, so they don't need to move to our church to come to our church. They can live somewhere and live it out.
Wonderful. So thinking, where do you think, what would be your vision for the next, say, 5 and 10 years? Where do you see things going, or where do you sense God leading?
I'm dreaming of a young generation who are now able, via social media, watching leaders who are not too far away from them. Like, I think I'm not so old, 40 years. Maybe they are watching us as family, and they need concrete steps to do things very fast, not waiting till the pastor does it or give the program in their church. So I'm dreaming of a movement of many, many young people praying at least for one. So as we experienced in our church planting, that this is the dynamic through prayer for people, concrete for one, I think that this is something everyone can do and everyone can live it out, to just start to pray for one. And then I think something will grow. We cannot count it, we cannot see it, but it will happen. And then we will wonder that this is God movement, because He's only multiplying things what comes from Him. And this is the highest commandment: love your neighbor. And as family, we experienced that our direct neighbor came to faith, and the second neighbor also already. And this is something we are more convinced than 6 years ago. So we keep on praying. And to open the house, this is the fruit. This comes naturally, organic. But the prayer and loving the neighbor, this is, I think, crucial, and this has power. So that's why I think in 5 years it will be for many young believers in Germany the normal life to have the one who they're praying for. And what comes out of this, it will be the new kind of church. I don't know how they will live it out, but they will. I'm sure they will. And this is not my business how they do it. They do it better than me. But the principle of loving the neighbor and praying for him, it's a small but important lesson.
You're 40. Let's think 50 years. It's your 90th birthday. What would you like to have seen happen in the next 50 years in your life, but also in Germany, as a nation?
I want to see my whole neighborhood coming to faith. I love this picture to sitting with the old neighbors sitting there, and we are worshiping God. But I'm also dreaming of an awakening like Iran or China, where in the houses many people come to faith, and we don't know yet the numbers, more than we can count. And this is what I'm dreaming of for Germany.
For Germany. What do you sense God leading you next in your life?
Maybe you heard about M4.
The name is familiar.
It is something what we are experiencing right now in Germany. My wife and me, there was a calling to lead M4 Germany. So we started with a learning community process in team process in the east of Germany, and now we are about to multiply it in the west Germany, and we want to see it in 2030, 4 streams in east, west, north, and south.
Wow.
And this is all about multiplication. So we try to live it out in our neighborhood, in our church, and then in our denomination, and then this network M4 nationwide. And this is what I'm living for. This is the next step after planting this church in Euskirchen.
Wow. Young church planners might be listening to this. Briefly, what would you like to tell and encourage them today with?
Don't wait till you have the camera, the lights, the stage. Don't wait. Don't waste the time. Go on your knees, pray for your neighbor, and do it. Do it every day for years, and you will see something moving in your heart. And then out of this, everything comes.
Great. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing about Germany, especially so personally about your family. And I think a definite reminder that we should be on our knees praying for those people, our neighbors, and that to come to Christ. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Well, that ends another episode here of the M4 podcast. If you would like to learn more about our ministry, you can check us out at www.m4europe.org. And we'll see you next time.